All right. Happy Halloween. I always have a difficult time kind of deciding what to do a review of for Halloween. And this year I decided to take another look back at Transformers Prime and take a look at the Beast Hunters Transformers Prime Terrorcons, which, were not originally called Terrorcons because the Terrorcons name had already been used in Transformers Prime to be the kind of like Dark Energon zombie cons, right? So these are officially all just like other Predacons, but they're based on the G1 Terrorcons team. So that's kind of how I refer to them, just to differentiate them from the other Predacons in the toy line. But yeah, these guys are a pretty fun little set. I mean, these guys individually are not a set. These are the individual releases, but they were also released in a box set where all of them had like slightly translucent colors. But these, like I said, these are the individual releases, and they're part of the Cyberverse part of the Transformers Prime toy line, which was the kind of like smaller size class that had both the Legion size and the Commander size figures, which confusing because Commander class and and Cyberverse mean very different things now, but these guys are the Legion scale, so the slightly smaller ones as opposed to the slightly bigger Commander classes. But yeah, no, they look pretty cool in their monster modes here. We've got all the original members of the G1 team, but now most of them have different names. So we've got Windrazor here, who is obviously a stand-in for Cutthroat. They just didn't have the trademark at the time, and it's a pretty good mode here with a kind of like pterodactyl mode. Does sort of have like the hands just kind of hanging out here on the arms on the wing sections there, which is a little awkward, but otherwise looks pretty good. We have Predacon Rippersnapper, who is one of the few that actually gets to keep their own name here. And yeah, this is, I would say, by far the the weakest one out of the five of them. It's it's got the most of a departure from the original mode, I would say. And well, I'll talk about it when I start talking about these guys individually. It's just, this one has some issues, but there we have Rippersnapper. Here we have Hun-Gurrr, who is now no longer four-legged like the original one, and has now traded out the kind of like pink color with the white to be more of a red, but still looks pretty cool. I do really like this figure, even if it is maybe the like least G1 accurate. I know I just said that about Rippersnapper, but I mean the colors alone kind of do that for Hun-Gurrr. And then we have Blight, who's obviously our stand-in for Blot. I think this is a really, really fun little figure. Again, not without issue. The hands are just kind of hanging out on the ankles here, but for simple figures, I think that they work pretty well. And last but not least, we have Twinstrike, who is originally Sinner Twin. And yeah, pretty cool mode here as well. Again, not without issue, but I think this mode works pretty well. And then, like all these Cyberverse figures, they also came with these little, 3mm peg modular weapons. And, because these guys came out as sort of like in different wave assortments, they hadn't quite figured out what they were doing with the weapons yet, which is why infamously Twinstrike here has a different colored weapon than the rest of them. Otherwise, it would have been totally symmetrical, with two of them having these sort of like crossbow weapons and then two of them having the hammers. And then, Hun-Gurrr getting the special chainsaw blade weapon there. But yeah, Twinstrike's is just a different color, which is kind of unfortunate. But I never really displayed these guys with these weapons anyway, just because like there's not really much to do with them, because that was part of the gimmick, right? Is they all have these little modular weapons, but because they're all just using the same weapon molds for all the different Cyberverse figures, none of them are really integrated. Like in terms of storage, you're just supposed to do things like pegging it onto the back here to have the hammer sit as like a weird cannon on the back of the like dragon mode, which I don't think looks particularly good. And it's all stuff like that. I don't actually know how each of them individually are supposed to store. It's probably just something like that, but still, you kind of get the point. It's just like, they're just kind of pegged on somewhere on the alt modes, which I don't think is a particularly fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to kind of take a look at these guys quickly individually on their own, and then we'll get on to the kind of combined mode, because yes, they do still turn into Abominus. But yeah, we'll just start off here with Windrazor, because he's at the back here. And like I said, pretty good kind of like pterodactyl dragon mode in terms of articulation. The head can hinge up and down. The shoulders here for the wing sections are on ball joints, and then you can also use this transformation joint if you want to get it kind of in more of like a perched mode, because that's the only way you can bring the arms forward. Then the elbows are also on ball joints, which doesn't actually give them elbow range, but they can kind of swivel in and out and hinge in and out this direction. And then the wings themselves can hinge in and out as well. And then the legs are on ball joints here at the hips. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, you get a little bit of, I guess, in this mode, ankle movement forward and back here. And then the tail can kind of hinge up and down. So not a whole lot to write home about, but pretty simple figure. In terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is with a standard core class figure and a standard size deluxe, just so you can see what he looks like with some modern figures. And then here he is with the Power of the Primes version of Cutthroat, just so you can see what the two of them look like together. Definitely a bit more like organic and bestial than the sort of like blockier G1 designs, but I think that they look pretty cool together. To do transformation for Cutthroat, they're, again, with all of them, they're pretty simple. I guess Windrazor, sorry, not Cutthroat. You want to take the legs here, and they actually just fold down like this, so that the kind of claws end up on the shins in robot mode. Then you can take this entire section with the dinosaur head here and kind of fold it down like this so it sits on the chest, which will also push up the robot mode head, which you can flip the rest of the way around like that and click it into place. Take the tail, just fold it up onto his back, and then fold these sections forward at the shoulders, and then just kind of collapse up the wings and have it sitting like that. And there we have Windrazor in his robot mode. And yeah, that works pretty well. I think definitely a little bit cleaner than the original Cutthroat design, where the wings are still on the back. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they're still on the arms, but it's just going for kind of a different take here. Definitely, I will say that like the yellow paint on this sort of yellowish plastic does kind of like eat detail a little bit. So there's just like, it's kind of hard to really get the features defined well and good there, but you know, I think that it still looks pretty good overall. Now, these guys didn't really have great articulation, nothing at the head. The shoulders, I mean, you can kind of use this as like a backwards butterfly joint, but you know, the actual shoulders here are on ball joints. The elbows are still on ball joints, but again, because they're like, you know, the socket is like that, they can only hinge inward. They can't actually like bend at the elbow at all, aside from like this tiny bit of movement, but I guess it does give him a bicep swivel technically. Nothing at the waist. Hips are on ball joints. The knees are just sculpted into place, so you could, I guess, use these as knees, but it's really like closer. It's like halfway down the shin, so it doesn't really work. I also thought it was a weird always that these were the heels and these were the toes. Like, I'm not really sure why they sculpted like that, because I feel like, you know, you could have had the heels be thinner as well and then have it look a little bit better in the bird mode. And I don't know, I just thought that was always kind of a weird foot design. But either way, that's what he looks like. Obviously, you can give him his little weapon here, so he can hold his little crossbow like that. And, you know, that looks fairly cool. But again, there's no really like good places to store it or do anything else with it. You could also have him hold it like this, which is, you know, have it be like an axe or something. These were all kind of designed to be a little bit modular like that, but I don't think that it really pays off all that well. But yeah, that's Windrazor, aka Cutthroat. I'll just put him in the background here, and then we'll move on to Rippersnapper, who, again, you know, I think that, you know, this is one of the largest like shape departures in terms of the alt modes. It's not really like that standing up shark mode anymore, and also the blue is a bit more of like a teal here, as opposed to the more like blue of the original Rippersnapper. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the arms are on swivels here, so they can just swivel up and down. The legs here, they have this joint, which is mostly for transformation to the combined mode, but you can use it. I don't really know what that's useful for, but there's also just ball joints at the hips here, so it can rotate around like that, and that's pretty much all you're getting. There's not really a whole lot else. It's just kind of an awkward mode. I don't really like how the robot mode head here just kind of like sits as this weird like bulb on his belly, and it kind of just like feels like two separate pieces. Like, I like the top half, even if it's not like super like, you know, accurate to the original Rippersnapper, but the bottom half is just kind of it just kind of like weird and disjointed in the middle, but whatever. In terms of comparisons for him, again, here he is again with Sideswipe and core class Soundwave from Kingdom. And here he is with the Power of the Primes Rippersnapper, just so you can see some of the departures there. The color's not quite the same, and obviously the whole shape is not as blocky and is just like a standing up shark like it was in the G1 version. But yeah, in terms of transformation for him, first thing you want to do is just split the head here down the middle, and it will just fold out to the side like that. You can also split this section. These will be the legs, and kind of bring them down like that. I guess first you want to take this back section and kind of unhinge it. It kind of tabs into both of those, and it'll come up like this, so it sits on the back there. And then you can kind of take these and you want to flip them around like this, so that this flat section ends up being the foot, and then you just kind of fold the arms up so they just sit on the back of the legs. And then you take this entire section with the head and the chest, and that also unhinges, and then you flip the head up, which does have a tendency to come off the clip sometimes, so I usually try to like hold it into place while I'm flipping it, and then flip that around, and that will kind of peg into this back section here, and then just bring down the legs as the arms, and there we have Rippersnapper in his robot mode. And yeah, it's kind of awkward. I mean, he's kind of like a skipped leg day kind of robot. Like his legs are very short and kind of thin, and then his arms are like huge and bulky. He's okay. He's just probably my least favorite of the bunch. But yeah, in terms of articulation for him, again, nothing at the head unless you want to count like that, forward hinge for the transformation, but it also kind of caves in his chest a little bit. The shoulders, again, have that sort of forward butterfly joint, which will be used for combined mode. Also have that ball joint, and then, the elbows are just sculpted, nothing there. Hips are on ball joints, and then again, his feet technically can go forward, but that's at the ankle, and the knees are just sculpted in, so not a ton of articulation. Then he gets the same weapon as Windrazor there for another little crossbow. Again, not a ton to say about him, just not great, but we'll put him off to the side for now and take a look at Hun-Gurrr, who might be my favorite of the bunch, even though he's like the one that's like the biggest departure from his G1 one. It's just a fun toy in terms of articulation for him. The necks are at ball joints here, and then the heads are at on hinges at the end there. Both of his arms can hinge up and down, but they're just one piece, so they move together. His legs are on ball joints, and then they also have for transformation this kind of like, I guess in this mode it kind of acts as a thigh swivel there. Then nothing at the knees, but the feet can kind of hinge up and down, and then the tail kind of technically can hinge down a little bit, but then you reveal his robot mode head, so not great. But yeah, in terms of comparisons for him, here he is again with our standard ones. I mean, they're all going to kind of look the same with those. And here he is with the Power of the Primes, Hun-Gurrr. So you can see very different design. I mean, I definitely, if I'm picking out a Hun-Gurrr design, I prefer this one, and I prefer the pink. But still, as a dragon in and of himself, I think that he looks pretty cool in his alt mode. His transformation is pretty simple, and it's pretty satisfying, honestly. You pretty much just take the heads here and fold them down. Those will be the feet. Take the arms here and just fold them onto the back. Take the tail, flip it onto the back as well, and it'll kind of sit like that. And then you bring down the arms here and then rotate them on that joint there, and then just flip the claws up. I mean, you could have them be like knuckle claws like that, but I usually flip them up like this for this mode. And pretty cool looking robot mode there. Again, very, very different from the original Hun-Gurrr design, but still pretty cool there. In terms of articulation for him, nothing at the head. Shoulders are on ball joints, and then he has that, that bicep swivel technically that only folds the one direction. But he's got both no elbows and also gorilla elbows at the same time magically, because the elbows are just sculpted, but they're sculpted in the wrong direction. So they fold in like, the infamous gorilla elbows. Knees are on ball joints, and then the feet can swivel back and forth. And again, sorry, not knees, hips, and then there's no knees. So, not super articulated. And then he's the one that comes with a different weapon, coming with this this cool chainsaw gun here. So you can hold it as either like a chainsaw sword, or as a gun here with the chainsaw as like a bayonet, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, next on we've got Blight, aka Blot. And again, I think that he's got maybe the coolest like update of his monster mode. The original Blot having a very derpy mode, which I do actually like. I like his weird sort of troll mode, but I think that this one is kind of a cool redesign. It kind of looks like a mole creature or something like that. In terms of articulation for him, shoulders are on ball joints here. The elbows are actually on mushroom swivels, so you can kind of like change the orientation of them because it's at a bit of an angle, but it's mostly always going to stay a little bit bent up like that. And then his fingers can hinge open and close for transformation. The hips are on ball joints. Annoyingly, they're on this armature that like doesn't quite get separated far enough, so his feet are always kind of like tilting in just ever so slightly, which is a bit annoying. But they can rotate around on that and then also kind of hinge in like that. And that's pretty much it. In terms of comparisons for him, again, side swipe, Soundwave, etc. And here he is with Power of the Primes, Blot, just so you can see some of the differences in the design there. And then for his transformation, again, he's got some kind of neat stuff going on. Pretty much you take the head here and it'll flip around on this section, just sit on the back like that. Then you want to take the arms and bring them down like this and then actually rotate them so it's kind of sitting like this to make his knees kind of bent, and then open up the claws to be his feet there, just like that. Rotate the arms around and then fold out the hands from the side there. And then you take this panel here, fold it open, which kind of unlocks this whole section, which allows it to hinge close like this, which I guess you have to kind of do afterwards. But you flip out his robot mode head here. And then when you're bringing this back up, you kind of fold this in to kind of widen his shoulders and then bring his hips together and then peg that into place. And there we have Blight in his robot mode. And yeah, I think he's got a really cool updated design here. I love how he's got the kind of like bulkhead jaw going on there. The kind of like trap jaw design in terms of articulation for him. Shoulders are on ball joints, so can do that. The hands can only hinge in. Elbows are just sculpted. Hips, ball joints, knees only have that swivel, and then the toes can still fold in and out. And he's one of the ones who gets the hammer, which I think is kind of appropriate because he sort of feels like the bruiser of the group here. It's kind of hard. He's got a really tight grip there. But yeah, no, I really like his head design, and I think adding, a little bit more flashes of yellow kind of helps his design as well. And then last but not least, maybe second least, I don't know, it's Twinstrike here. He's okay. He was like, again, the first one that was released, which is why his weapon is a different color. I really like the design of his mode, but I do have kind of one major problem with this guy that I'll get into during the transformation. But yeah, no, pretty cool design here in terms of articulation. The heads are just on ball joints at the neck here, attached down there, so like if you hinge them down, they kind of disjoint themselves. The tails can kind of fold up and down. The front legs here are on ball joints here at the hips, but then also this armature section you can kind of bring up further or bring down if you want to sort of adjust the height of where the legs attach to the body. I usually kind of get it about there, and then that's all for those like, hey, there's the problem. And then the back legs here are on ball joints at the hips, and then the knees or the feet are also on ball joints, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, in terms of comparisons for him, like I said again, Sideswipe and Soundwave. And then here he is with the Power of the Primes Sinner Twin, just so you can see a little bit more dragony in its design rather than the kind of like dragon dog that the original Sinner Twin was, but that's what they look like together. And then in terms of transformation, so the big thing with this guy is that these joints here, you're supposed to like extend out and then swivel around the legs, but there just is not the clearance to do it. And eventually it inevitably ends up working the little pin off of the, joint it's attached to. And it's only gotten worse and worse throughout the years. So now I don't even like bother trying to reconnect it. Cause like you could, if you want, take like a little nail or something and just like try to press it back in, but it's not a very tight connection. And inevitably, because it only extends out that much, you have to force it around either this section or this section. It ends up just working it off the joint again, unfortunately. But that's what you're supposed to do, is just work it around to the other side and then flip the feet around at the ball joints there. This side's for now holding on, but both sides have come off at a certain point. But you really just have to like force it around those sections, no matter which direction you go, which is really just kind of unfortunate, and then extend it back in. And then you want to take the front arms here and actually just flip them around. They'll end up just being sort of back kibble. And then you can take the dragon heads and rotate them down to be the robot mode arms. And you can flip open this section and then flip around the head there and then close that back up and then just flip the tails onto the back. So you can kind of do whatever you want with the legs. I usually put them up like that. And there we have Twinstrike in his robot mode. And it's a shame about that leg thing, because he actually does have a fairly cool robot mode design. Articulation for him, just shoulders are on ball joints, and they can also hinge up like that, but they are a little bit limited. Like you have to use that joint to hinge them out to the side. Again, nothing at the head. Hips are on ball joints and feet are on ball joints, but no elbows, no knees, unfortunately. And he gets the weirdly off-colored hammer here. But yeah, that's the full team of them in this mode. So I'll just do the comparisons in their robot mode all together. For the standard ones, here they all are with core class Soundwave and deluxe class Sideswipe there. And then here we've got Cutthroat with Windrazor here. Dropping them all over the place. That's what they look like together. Put him back here. Got Rippersnapper with Rippersnapper, just so you can see the differences there. Hun-Gurrr with Hun-Gurrr, who's definitely not going to fit on frame here, because he's actually a Voyager, unlike the the Cyberverse version where they're all the same size. The original Hun-Gurrr is supposed to be a bit bigger. Got Blight with Blot. And Twinstrike with Sinner Twin, just so you can see how they all look there. And then last but not least, it's time to actually get them onto their combined mode. So we'll just take their weapons away for now and put them off to the side. And then for the legs, we're going to start off with Blight here. He's one of the legs. You want to basically fold this section down, fold the head back in. How does this work? I can't totally remember. All right, you want to fold this open again. Is that right? Wait a minute. I have to think about this. No, you bring the head down. I think you leave this. Yeah, you leave this like this, and then you peg the legs. That's how it works. Peg the legs into the head like that, so it sits like that. Then you flip the head in, but otherwise fold it back up. And then you take the arms and you use that joint there and fold them in like that. That's how that's going to sit for his leg mode. And then for Rippersnapper, he'll be the other leg here. Gosh, I remember how this works even less. You want to basically take this section, and then you want to flip the head around to the other side, because this is where the guy is where Hun-Gurrr is gonna clip in. Then you fold his legs here to the other side. Actually, I think you just actually peg his legs together. Is that right? Yeah, you peg his legs together, and then you bring down the arms as little toes here. And then I think you can. Do you want to bring this section down? I can't totally remember. No, I think you leave it back up like that, because then it needs to stay tabbed in. Yeah, so there's the leg for Rippersnapper there. God, I thought I really remembered how to do these guys, but going to take a bit of relearning here. Then you can kind of straighten it up like that, and that'll be the other leg. Then we can take Hun-Gurrr, who I definitely remember how to do, and you basically want to fold this section down so that these little clips are are visible. He's going to flip around like this, and then you take this whole section, and it will actually open up like that, which kind of extends out his body a little bit, but also gives you the clearance to take his robot mode head and flip it around like this, so to reveal the Abominus robot mode head. And then you take the shoulders and flip them up like this. And you can, if you want, like put these up to be kind of like shoulder spike details. I'll just leave them up like this for now and then decide how it looks when we get them all together. But basically you take each of these little clips and they'll kind of just sink the heads into these sections here and then clip it in like that. And that's how it's supposed to sit. It's supposed to sit a little bit cleaner than that though. Hold on. Get it like that. And yeah, I guess this doesn't really peg back together, but it mostly holds its place. And then Blot, same thing, or Blight rather. Again, you want to fold that section up. Oh, do you need his head? Maybe you do. Yeah, I forgot about that. You need his head flipped out so that actually has the clearance here. So you get that folded into place, and then his head just kind of gets peekabooed by his shoulders there, so you don't see it like that. And there you have the leg sections all done. And then for the arms, for Twinstrike here, you want to definitely fold away his head. I usually find if I have a hard time like flipping this section out, you can also just take the head and kind of flip it that way and then fold it in like that. I'm going to do that. And then you bring down the arms here so they sit like this, and there's even like a cutout in the necks here so that you can keep the tails folded up and it still just kind of sits in like that. And then for the rest of his arm, his front legs here end up being like a claw for him, and then you sit it like that. And then you can I usually think it looks a little bit cleaner to flip these around the other way like they were in alt mode, but you can kind of put those in either direction. And then for these two little pegs on each of the legs, they'll just they'll just peg into these two slots on Hun-Gurr's arm here. So you fold it up like that, and then just attach the legs each on either side of it, and then we can put this piece back on. And then you can kind of decide what you want to do with the claws. I think it actually looks a little bit cleaner to fold it up like that. And there you have the one arm. And then for Windrazor here, it's pretty similar. You want to flip the tail up just so you can flip the head back in, and then flip out the bird head, which will end up being his other hand. And then the tail you just fold back up onto that section there. then I think, yeah, I think you want to fold these back so how they were in alt mode, and then you can kind of take the wings and then flip them around. How do you want them? Like that? Yeah. Flip them back, pretty much all back to bird mode, except the arms are flipped the other way, and then the tail is still on the back there. And then again, it attaches very similarly to how Twinstrike did, just like that. And then I think that, yes, that looks better as well. And there we have Abominus in his robot mode. And yeah, it's an interesting look. It's a neat transformation scheme to get them all combined. I'm sort of baffled by like why, since they already in Cyberverse had the two different size classes of Legion and Commander class, I just feel like it would be proportionally a lot better if they had made Hun-Gurrr the Commander class one, just so he'd be slightly bigger in comparison to them. Because you definitely run into that problem where he's got like huge arms and legs and then just kind of like a tiny body in the middle. But, you know, it's still a neat combined mode, and it's neat that they can do it at this scale. Honestly, I think that this looks, you know, this set as a whole looks like comparable, if not better, than like the Dinobot core class combiners that we just recently got in Legacy. So you know, that's kind of why I didn't pick those up. I just didn't think that they looked particularly good. But in terms of articulation for him, the shoulders are on ball joints. They're just on the same ball joints that Hun-Gurr's shoulders were on, which, you know, have definitely loosened up a little bit over time, and he can't quite, you know, hold the arms up sometimes. And then also has that forward swivel there. You can kind of count the like hip joints of these guys as elbows, but they're really too tall, and they kind of do the gorilla elbows thing. And then obviously, you know, you can kind of fold around all of Twinstrike's like claw sections here for his big hand, but you know, and then there you go, a wrist joint. And then for the legs here, again, they're just on ball joints, and then they unfortunately don't really have knees since they're actually clipped into the white section, not the red section. So the swivel for the heads there can't really do anything. You can wiggle Rippersnapper's toes, so that's worth something. So yeah, you pretty much just get him standing there. It's not really, you know, much in terms of actual articulation. You can give them the weapons, and then because these are all modular, you can do silly things like, you know, plug them into each other and make some like weird giant combined mode. I've never really been able to find a version of this that I think looks like good, but there are plenty of like ports and pegs on these, so it's like you can definitely get them attached together if nothing else. And then because he does have the 3mm clip there for Windrazor's head, you can get him holding some like weird giant weapon. And, you know, it's kind of neat. That was just kind of a haphazard attempt, but you could probably try some other things out. But yeah, in terms of comparisons with his combined mode, here he is again with Sideswipe and Soundwave, just so you can see kind of roughly deluxe size there when all things are said and done. And then, of course, here he is with the power of the primes, Abominus, who is for sure not going to fit onto frame. But that's what the two of them look like together. Obviously, some very different design cues here, but I still think that they're both pretty cool designs there. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about the Transformers Prime Terrorcons, Predacon Terrorcons, you know what I'm talking about. They're all cool figures individually. None of them are without flaw. I think that, again, probably my least favorite is definitely Rippersnapper, and Hun-Gurrr is probably my favorite. But, you know, they're all good and bad in their own little ways. The combined mode is a fun feature, but again, flawed. But still, this was still at the time where we actually really hadn't gotten many like proper well-done combiners. Like the best combiners at this point were probably still like the Energon combiners. So like, you know, I think that this one was pretty good for being a bunch of small figures. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to them. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on my Instagram account. That's toys.n.art. And without further ado, here we have the Transformers Prime Terrorcons, and happy Halloween.